Two moms, two marketers, two women new to the financial industry. They have a lot of questions. That's why they're bringing in financial experts to educate all of us here on A Penny or Two for Your Thoughts.
Hey everyone, it's Chantal and Liz with another episode of our award-winning
Ding, 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 ding.
podcast, A Penny or Two for Your Thoughts. Let's just
sit in that moment.
Yeah, let's just sit here and think about it.
Yep. That's
so
good. Okay.
No, we do want to thank everybody who voted for us in the education category. What an honor.
Yep. We appreciate your support. We appreciate that you listen to us and you keep coming back for more.
Yeah. Today it's gonna be good.
Today's a good one.
Good one.
Well, first of all, today's kind of a big day for us in the credit union space. It's International Credit Union Day. And for those of you that don't know, since 1948, International Credit Union Day has been celebrated on the third Thursday of October.
It's interesting as we were kind of learning when we started learning about credit unions and how different they are, but how big of an impact they make in our world. And I love their theme this year, One World Through Cooperative Finance. So their whole thought process was when they're coming up with this is we're kind of in a divided world these days.
Yep.
And how do you bring that together and how do you get people to play nice,
right?
Be kind,
embrace that mantra of people helping people.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's truly what a credit union is. And I think that's what we saw coming in here is just how different credit unions collaborate with each other, especially from a marketing perspective. We're seeing that from our side. It's just the collaboration and people over profit.
Right.
You know?
Yep. Exactly. Yeah. We're used to the marketing space where it's basically hide your marketing strategies and what you do. And you don't tell anybody.
Yeah. No.
Until it's out in the public domain, then they see it.
Absolutely.
It's too late for them to act on it.
Absolutely. So today we're going to talk about ways that we're fighting for those credit unions and keeping it a strong base for everyone. So who do we have, Liz, and our guests?
Well, Chantel, you're not going to believe this, but we have two returning guests. And I'm pretty sure they're part of the reason why we won the award, because I think people really liked their episodes and listened.
Agree.
We have two very special guests. Like I said, both are returning guests of our podcast. We have our president and CEO, Steve Swanstrom, and we have our executive vice president and chief financial officer, Tom Huston.
Hey, guys.
Hi, guys.
Hello.
Welcome. Welcome back.
Yeah, they came back.
Thank you for having us.
I think
Glad to be here.
Awesome.
Congrats on your award.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well
so much.
earned, well deserved.
Exciting stuff, right?
It is.
Oh,
They probably came back because they won it.
I know. Like, let's come to the first one after the award.
Right.
Because this is the one. This is going to be a really good one.
Yeah.
So
Like it's
I
all about
understand where it's coming from.
It's like
That's cool.
education. They won the education category. We should come on and really educate the listeners.
That's right. That's right.
That's what it's about.
Oh, we're just going to jump in. Are you guys ready?
We're ready.
We gave you guys
Sure.
some
I'm ready.
hard
Tom, are you ready?
questions.
As ready as I'm ever going to be.
All right. I mean, there's some difficult questions and deep things, but we're there's some good information here for our listeners. So, all right, Steve. We just talked about International Credit Union Day. Congratulations for being our president on this wonderful day. So explain to us what the credit union movement really is, because that's what kind of that whole inspiration around International Credit Union Day is really all about.
Sure. So let's start with a little bit of a history lesson that goes back to the 1850s in Europe, which is the original origins of credit unions. That then found its way into the U.S. via Boston, Massachusetts in the early 1900s. And then during the Great Depression, the United States, saw thousands of banks fail during that time. And there was a distinct need for banking services for, as we say, those of modest means. And so in 1934, our president at the time, Franklin D. Roosevelt, signed into law the Federal Credit Union Act. That was on June 26th of 1934. And Centris, I'm proud to say, was founded a few months later as the 28th federally chartered credit union in America. So as you ladies know, we're celebrating our 90th anniversary this month, in fact. And so it's appropriate that Centris is aligned with not just the credit union movement, but also International Credit Union Day.
Because goosebumps just to think about how just starting off when everything was starting.
Yep.
We were doing it.
Right.
So good.
Yeah,
28.
super fun.
Love it.
So the purpose of that original law, which stands today, was, as I said, to help people of modest means who were being neglected at the time by the banking system because of all the bank failures. And so the Federal Credit Union Act established at that time the Federal Credit Union System, which created the NCUA, or the National Credit Union Administration, which is the regulatory body that oversees the chartering and the regulation of all federal credit unions. And so the purpose of credit unions in general is to promote thrift, to provide credit at reasonable rates. So we talk about credit unions have low rates, low fees, and providing other financial services to our members through this national system of not-for-profit cooperative financial institutions. So what does that mean? What does a cooperative financial institution mean? Well, in general, credit unions follow a principle of one person, one vote. And so it's an idea where our members, so we have about 130,000 members, our members each have a vote as to who the board of directors is going to be that helps to oversee the needs of the credit union. And I don't think we have time to get into all of that today, but there are a lot of needs at the credit union, as you well know.
Absolutely. So, but the people helping people concept, right?
Yep.
Always, yes. So again, the fact that our members are actively involved in helping to identify the needs of the credit union. As you ladies know, everything we talk about each and every day revolves around what are our members' needs? What are they? Is it technology? Is it new branches? Is it better products, services, pricing, all of those variables that we deal with on a day in, day out basis? The top of that pyramid is our member owners and the people that we serve and the people that we want to serve. So
great. Good stuff.
That's good. Now, I know, Steve, you, like you said, those members, they have the vote. They're kind of our voice. They help us, and the board of directors oversees the needs of the credit union. You kind of take that voice and you go beyond just the credit union itself. You go beyond and further. So you go to Washington, D.C., and you've been there several times for Hike the Hill. Tom, I know you've been there once before as well. Steve, we're not sure if this is some extreme sport that you're doing, but we know you go quite often. But you just came back from the 2024 Hike the Hill. So can you fill us in on what exactly Hike the Hill means to credit unions and our members?
Yeah, so it's an exciting opportunity for us to advocate on behalf of the needs of credit unions and in particular Nebraska credit unions. So we go to Washington, D.C. and spend that time meeting with our elected officials and their staff. It's a very intimate setting where credit union CEOs who represent our 3 districts here in Nebraska are able to meet with our 3 congressmen and our 2 senators in their offices and with their staff. So this isn't a large lobbying group. Literally is one representative from each district, and then our 2 leaders from our Nebraska Credit Union League office, which is our a trade association or advocacy group here in the state of Nebraska. What we discussed that time are legislative issues that are important to Nebraska's credit unions, such as preserving the credit union federal income tax exemption. That's kind of a mouthful, but what it allows credit unions to do is fulfill our mission of putting our more than 140 million members nationwide, their financial needs ahead of the bottom line needs. Now, that doesn't mean that we can lose money or that we're out to not try to grow our capital base and earn a living. It just means that, again, at the top of that pyramid are our members and their needs, and in particular, as a financial institution, their financial needs. So it's important to note, however, that as a not-for-profit financial institution, we do still pay many, many taxes. So as an industry, we pay payroll and property taxes, and the dividends that we pay our members on their deposits, they are taxed at their personal income tax rate. So credit unions account for nearly $29 billion in local, state, and federal taxes annually. So it's not to say that we don't pay taxes. That sometimes is a myth that people don't fully understand. We pay plenty of taxes. And the $2 billion that Congress invents in our tax exemption generates more than $208 billion in economic impact across the U.S. every year. So investing $2 billion to generate $200 billion, that sounds like a pretty good investment to me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you said you have done this many times. I know we've just in our 3 years, we've seen you take part in this several times, but this is an election year. So I don't know if you guys knew that. But
wow. That is brand new.
I wanted to give you that breaking news. But why was it so important to go this year during an election, or maybe how is it different?
Yeah. So what is the most important to us in our efforts is consistency. So consistency in our messaging and what we're trying to accomplish as an industry, consistency then in our lawmakers that are representing us. All 5 of our lawmakers in Washington are on the ballot this year. So that's why it's an important year for all of us, because again, we've been lobbying for our needs as a credit union since all of them were at the state level in some way, shape, or form. All but one. Don Bacon is the only one that didn't serve in the Nebraska legislature. The other 4 have. And so it's important that, again, with that consistency of them knowing what we're trying to accomplish here on behalf of our members, on behalf of their constituents when it comes to their financial needs, helping those of modest means, all of those things. This is an important year because they're all on the ballot. And if they are not reelected, then we have to start over with somebody new.
Right.
And so now you start that whole cycle and that whole process over again. And in the example that I just gave about the tax exemption, it depending upon which constituency group they listen to, that could be a good thing or a not so good thing. And so trying to make sure that they understand, again, that $2 billion for $200 billion in economic impact, and what exactly that means. The other thing that is important this year on the ballot, and that we were lobbying hard for on behalf of our member owners, is this thing called trigger leads. So it's something unique to when one of our members applies for a mortgage loan, that then triggers a credit report pull, and the credit bureaus then have sold that instance or that credit pull to other financial institutions that have paid to know that information. And now all of a sudden our members are being contacted by those other financial institutions saying, hey, I hear you're in the market for a mortgage loan. Come talk to us. And it's very confusing, one, by the volume. We've heard from our team that our members on average get about 12 of those trigger lead calls. And the most that we've heard of is 30. So shortly after that triggering event, our members have received anywhere between 12 to 30 phone calls from other financial institutions competing for their business. Now, the reason it's confusing is because it happens very shortly after this event, and they think at that point that their information has been hacked or compromised, that perhaps we've had a breach, that perhaps Centris has sold their information to these other financial institutions or to some third party. You can imagine as a consumer all of the bad things that race through your mind as we hear about these breaches and these these personal information compromises that have occurred. So it's something that our lawmakers are well aware of. It's something that is on a ballot bill in DC as we speak. We're optimistic and hopeful that there can be some curbs and some controls on this triggering events before this Congress gets out of session in January. But that's a reason or a great example of why it's important that we have consistency in our lawmakers, so that when we do go ask for these needs, one, they know who we are. Two, they know that it's an important thing on behalf of their constituents. And three, they have some pull or some sway in Washington that they can get these types of bills through Congress, or at least help to network with the other lawmakers and try to get these things passed.
Absolutely.
So then how can credit union members and industry leaders support those ongoing advocacy efforts in the aftermath of Hike the Hill and then in preparation for these potential election outcomes? So if there is, you said everybody's on the ballot again, so how can they kind of prepare and keep that advocacy going?
Yeah, great question. And I appreciate the opportunity to share our national trade association or advocacy group is at America's, plural, credit unions, plural.org. So americascreditunions.org. And within there is all kinds of great information about America's credit unions, but there is an advocacy tab that has lots of great links to other information. And there's a wealth of information and actions that credit union members can take to make their voices count in both Washington as well as here in Nebraska. So americascreditunions.org.
Right.
Please go there.
We will. We'll link to it.
We'll put a link in the description.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. We're going to switch gears a little bit. Tom, you've been just anxiously waiting in the wings.
I've
here.
been enjoying the discussion.
Okay. All right. So sticking on the whole surprise information about this being a political year. So you're our CFO and you know all the stats and the numbers, things that Liz and I sway away from. We
like the stats, but it's the mathing.
The mathing, getting to it. Mm-hmm.
Right.
And remind them it is budget season right now. So.
We are, yes, kicking off budget.
I had a dream about budget the other night.
A dream or a nightmare?
It was a nightmare. And now I'm realizing, was that actually yesterday when I was working on my budget? I'm not sure. I can't remember. It's all blurring together. But anyway, how can an election year impact the financial industry? I know it's a huge question.
It is a huge question. Steve touched on it. Regulation or deregulation can have a very significant impact, on credit unions in general. So whether there's a focus on, additional financial oversight and consumer protection, or are they going the other way, with deregulation and easing compliance burdens. So it makes a big deal, in terms of who is elected and which route they take, because that can impact ultimately operating expenses of the credit union and the services that we provide to our membership. And so, in addition to regulation, you look at fiscal policy. So that might not directly impact monetary policy, but it indirectly impacts monetary policy. So when you think of fiscal policy, and we just talked about budget, federal budget of the government, state level, et cetera, if a candidate is pushing for larger government, bigger budget, that one of the implications of that could potentially be inflation. So we've all felt that recently with higher inflation rates, just because of government, not just because, but one of the reasons could be large government, more spending, more money into the system. And so the business that we're in that Steve described, our members rely on us. We serve the underserved for providing loans, taking in their deposits and meeting their needs. And then when inflation increases like it has in the past, then that can cause interest rates to rise. And then the Fed comes in, and we're now starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel with rates starting to come down.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
But depending on the candidate, just to summarize, that can have huge implications on the future pipeline of future regulations that can make it harder to do business and that can hurt, the members and the constituents of the candidates. And as Steve mentioned, we have over 130,000 members. Nationally, credit unions serve a ton of constituents. And so ultimately, the fact that we're member owned and trying to do the right thing for the membership, we have to be dynamic in terms of, Steve mentioned consistency, and that's important. That's what we're hoping for out of DC, but that can have huge implications in terms of where the credit union heads to continue to serve our membership.
All right, Tom, I'm going to ask you to get your crystal ball out because we ask that a lot, especially in meetings with you. How do you anticipate this election year will affect financial strategies and plannings for credit unions specifically?
We're in this for the long haul, and it certainly can have shorter term implications in terms of, additional regulations coming down the pipe and implications on interest rates. But ultimately, we do a lot of what if scenarios and we do a lot of forecasting, and it's always through the lens of the membership, what's best for the member. And so either way, it's very easy to get super focused on, what if this happens with, this particular candidate, if they come into office. At the end of the day, we're going to continue to do what we do best, serving the members, and putting their best interests first. And so we have what we call levers that we pull, so depending on, if future regulations come out that might impact certain services that we offer to our membership, or if interest rates go up or down, we are prepared to pull levers to make sure that ultimately services aren't impacted to our members negatively.
Every time you say pulling levers, I think of the Wizard of Oz, and there's just this magical thing happening. That's what the visual,
right? Like Tom's in the back, just like, we're gonna pull this one, and we're gonna pull this one. Yep, yep.
Smoke, and glitter, and all the things happening.
I wish it was that cool.
No,
yeah.
Dang it! All
Pay
right.
no attention to the man behind the curtain.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
So during the election, how can the election impact varying age groups? So, those that are maybe buying their first car, buying their first home, or, getting ready to retire. What does that look like for those different audiences?
Yeah, at super high level, I think young adults, middle-aged adults, and older adults. And young adults, you're thinking about education costs, student debt, and so policies matter, in that space. Also think about job market and entry-level employment. So depending on physical policy, and as I just mentioned, in the size of the government and the size of let's call it the federal budget, that can have implications on employment levels. And so, which obviously impacts, young adults that are maybe coming out of school looking for that entry-level job. And so there are lots of direct, but also indirect implications of policy. And so, as Steve mentioned, it's critically important that we continue to advocate and have consistency. For middle-aged adults, I think about maybe they're moving into their second home, or home ownership is a big deal. Taxes and disposable income. So both sides of the fence, right, have talked about income tax implications and what that impact is to disposable income. And then childcare and education costs, right? When you're middle-aged, it's all about chauffeuring your kiddos around town, but policy matters in that space too. And then lastly, with older adults, you think about retirement savings, Social Security. Try not to think about the physical cliff too much with Social Security and some of the entitlement spending, but it could be scary, when you think about just the national deficit, the recent spending, and then what the implications are to Social Security. And then lastly, healthcare, Medicare, long-term care, all those care things, with older people. The decisions that, politicians make today are impacting the future. So not only, the future of our older adults, but of course our younger adults too. Yeah. And so Centris, of course, cuts across all of those different age groups. Our membership is very diverse. And, one of our mantras is financial literacy. So irrespective of the policies that are coming out of White House and locally, it's how can we ensure that our members have a solid financial plan, and we're offering those services to set them up for success.
What would be some useful sources that our listeners, because our listeners are of that varying age range too. So we have the young adults and we have older adults and we've got the middle age. So what are some useful sources for them that they could read up on, or any tips and tricks that they should follow as they navigate this new political environment and helping them stay informed about the financial impacts of this upcoming election?
Fortunately, there's numerous reputable sources. There's also equal number of not reputable.
Weird.
Right. It is a weird environment that we live in.
The internet, it's all true, right?
If it's on the internet, it's true.
It's all true.
There's a combination of news outlets, official government resources, nonpartisan organizations, educational platforms. And some examples that I use, I like Wall Street Journal, NPR, Bloomberg, Federal Reserve, Pew Research Center, it's spelled PEW. I think it's a really good resource. Vote.org. But there's not a shortage of resources.
It's just trying to diversify that information or figure out what you should be listening to, right? And what impacts you and your family, and just trying to know how to sift through that. I think it's so overwhelming.
There's a lot of noise right now, and just trying to sift through that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's important to be educated, of course, both from an organization perspective, but as well as individually, on who the candidates are and what they stand for. And it's also okay to ask for help too, right? So not to go this thing alone with personal finance, but, use online resources and or personal financial planners. And then Centris, our website has great resources in the financial literacy space.
Absolutely. So you guys have just filled us with a bunch of great knowledge for sure. So if you wanted to leave one thought, or what we like to say, a penny or two for your thoughts, what would you leave our listeners with today?
Want me to go first?
Sure.
Well, since this is an every 4-year political environment, I'd like to educate the listeners on a way that they can help credit unions stay strong and viable, and that's by consider making a donation to America's Credit Unions Political Action Committee. So it's our primary means of supporting pro-credit union candidates for office. So I know there's lots of different reasons that people run for office, different topics and issues that they support, but this is the way that our listeners or our members that care about credit unions can sift through all of that by going to our National Trade Association and donating to them, because they know which political candidates support credit unions.
Right.
And that's what's most important to us. And so to find that, they can go to, again, americascreditunions.org. And they can either go to that advocacy tab and there's a political action committee link, or they can just search on that site for PAC, PAC, and they can find the political action committee link for that.
Good.
So,
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I mentioned it earlier, but I think it's super easy to go down the path of getting uber focused on trying to predict what the outcome of the election is going to be,
Mhm.
and then what that means. And so I do think it's, of course, beneficial to understand, as I mentioned, what the different candidates' platforms are, but we've all got enough stress in our life. So let's not pile on the stress with trying to predict who's going to win the election. So as an organization, we plan appropriately. But my, I think, suggestion is at a personal financial planning level, like take a long-term view. Don't get emotional about the election and, the day after the election, make some huge personal financial decision.
Yeah.
Take a long-term view. Of course, diversify your investments. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. And then also, if you have the means, work with a financial professional. Do not do this alone. And Centris is also, right there partnering with our members. But I think one of the negative things is we think we can do everything by ourselves. It's like use the resources that are available from a personal financial perspective.
Take a breath.
Yep.
Right.
Look at what's right here in front of you and see what
Right.
help you can get. Absolutely.
Yeah. Don't just look at the short term.
Yeah.
Long term.
Long-term
I love
gain.
it.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. Long-term game.
I know you said something about a cliff earlier, and I was like, "Yep, there's a cliff, definitely."
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's not go over the cliff.
Yeah.
Let's not
Let's
do
not
that.
get close to the edge of it either.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's right.
Stay far away.
Yeah.
Thank you both so much for taking time out of your busy schedules. I know you both are just doing a lot of things, a lot of great things for our credit union, and we appreciate that you were able to join us today on the award-winning podcast. Just gotta throw that in there, just in case anybody forgot. If they forgot. And we appreciate all the great things you're doing to help lead our credit union and our employees so that we can thrive and continue to help serve our members, because that's what we're here for. People helping people. So we appreciate you. And listeners, thank you again for your ongoing support of the show. If you have any financial topics you want to learn more about and questions specifically you want to ask, you can email us at apennyforyourthoughts@centrisfcu.org, and we'll find the right expert to bring on the show. You can help others find our podcast by rating, reviewing, and sharing your favorite episode, and I know this will be the one. And if you don't want to miss an episode, make sure you're subscribing. For more great financial insights, tips, and education, especially as we head into this next year, you can follow Centris on Facebook, Instagram, X, and LinkedIn, or check out our website at centrisfcu.org. And if you just want to chat with one of our amazing experts like Steve or Tom, just give us a call at 402-334-7000. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Thanks again for listening.
Thanks, everyone.